For decades, Canadian shoppers poured into U.S. border towns, filling gas tanks, grocery carts, pharmacies, and diners. They came for the deals, for U.S. brands, for weekend getaways just across the line, where the same dollar stretched much further. These towns thrived on that traffic, but by 2025 the Canadian dollar is weak, U.S. prices have climbed, tariffs bite, and political rhetoric has frayed relations. The result: empty storefronts, lost jobs, shuttered storefronts, and communities grappling with change. Today, we explore 8 American border towns across the continent, whose economies unraveled when the Canadians stopped coming. Point Roberts, Washington. Point Roberts is unique and vulnerable. A 5-square-mile exclave of Washington state, clipped south of Canada, accessible only through British Columbia. Until recently, it thrived. Around 70% of homes were Canadian-owned, and 90% of local grocery sales came from north of the border shoppers. But in 2025, everything changed. Ali Hayton, owner of International Marketplace, reports. Sales are down about 30%, we're hanging on by a thread. Tamra Hansen, operator of Saltwater Cafe and the Pier restaurant. Sales plunged 55% in 1 month, worse than COVID. Beth Calder, co-owner of Point to Point Parcel, said her shipping business saw a 75% drop and announced permanent closure. Others added costs from tariffs drove ducks and trinkets out of range financially. The Rubber Duck Museum is relocating to Canada. Brian Calder, resident and Support Canada bump sticker designer. We're stuck in the middle, like an unwanted orphan. The town's grocery store nearly became a food desert, and without government support, residents fear the whole place could vanish. Blaine, Washington. A few miles east is Blaine, home to the Peace Arch Crossing, once a bustling gateway for Canadian shoppers. In 2025, southbound Canadian traffic dropped over 50%. Parcel shops, restaurants, and gas stations that relied heavily on Canadian cash are now cutting staff, or shuttering entirely. Lori Troutman, director at Western Washington University's Border Policy Institute, warns, these industries on both sides built up out of a cross-border relationship, and disruptions will play out on both sides. Massena, New York. In upstate New York, Massena stands opposite Cornwall, Ontario, connected by the 3 nations crossing over the St. Lawrence River. April 2025 saw over 22% fewer crossings from Canada, a drop of nearly 300,000 vehicles. Senator Chuck Schumer. This shocking data shows our tourism economy is paying the price. Upstate New York is on the front lines. Massena Mayor Greg Paquin adds, we rely quite heavily on Canadian shoppers. Losing them would be a detriment to the whole community. The town's mall, once a retail hub, lost 90% of its stores, surviving with just 9 retailers. Local Dollar Tree staff report clear evidence: fewer carts, fewer customers. International Falls, Minnesota. Moving west, International Falls, Minnesota pairs with Fort Francis, Ontario, a binational friendship of communities. Imports of groceries, gas, healthcare, and family visits cross daily. But tariffs and frayed rhetoric cooled that link, leaving locals wounded, not angry, just disappointed. Businesses say they're a little hurt, trying to recover connections that once seemed unbreakable. Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. In the upper Midwest, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan mirrors its twin city in Ontario, sharing tourism, marinas, and riverfront traffic. Tour boats now carry fewer passengers. Marinas are quiet. Hotels offer deep discounts to stay afloat. No official numbers yet, but the demand drop echoes trends nationwide. Port Angeles, Washington. Port Angeles on Washington's Olympic Peninsula once thrived on weekend traffic from Vancouver Island tourists, arriving by ferry. Local innkeepers, hoteliers, and Airbnb hosts report this summer as the worst in a decade. Gift shops face slow days with no buyers. Even Olympic National Park reported declines in international visitors this season. Eureka, Montana. In Eureka, Montana, close to Roosevelt Crossing, Canadian travelers once fueled a market for gas, groceries, and outdoor gear. Mike Volsky of Four Corners Casino and Grill. We continue to see regular Canadian customers, though travel and the weak dollar have chilled spending. Meanwhile, border tariffs could push ice fishing tackle or beer prices up by 25%, a further deterrent. Calais, Maine. On the Atlantic, Calais, Maine, and St. Stephen, New Brunswick form a single community. Schools, services, deep friendships across the river. Since tariffs in February, Calais IGA co-owner Bob Kraft has seen overall sales fall 20%. Tina Maholland of C&E Feeds. We are down approximately 61% in package customers and sales. It's almost 3/4 what it was. Jim Porter, interim city manager. Calais is like a ghost town now without the Canadians. They feel offended. We see them as our friends and neighbors. U.S. Customs data show 30,000 fewer crossings in February alone. From Point Roberts to Calais, one theme emerges. A shared economic lifeline has been cut. Point Roberts, once 70% Canadian-owned, now struggles to stay alive. Blaine slashes staffing. Massena lost thousands of Canadian cars. International Falls mourns its binational ties. Sault Ste. Marie and Port Angeles fight tourism drop-offs. Eureka loses shoppers. Calais is a ghost without its neighbors. Is this a short-term downturn, or the end of a cross-border era? Some towns try to pivot. Grocery discounts, promotions, domestic tourism campaigns, e-commerce, however faint the hope. Yet the question hangs, what happens when your economy depends on someone who stops coming? We want to hear from you. Share your stories or memories of border towns.